Day three, day three, day three. I'm so happy for day three. SOHCAHTOA, right triangles. First, you have to remember the Pythagorean theorem. A squared, B squared, C squared. It's always the most important to know which one is going to be the hypotenuse. Straight across from the 90 degrees will be the hypotenuse. So a lot of times these questions, we're going to ask you to have them in simplest radical form to review of our algebra concepts too. I'm going to do B. You're going to do A. So first, when I'm looking at this one, it doesn't matter which one's A, B, C is the most important. My equation would be x squared plus 8 squared is equal to 20 squared. And the first thing I would do is do 20 squared minus 8 squared. And then I would get x squared would be equal to 336. You have to take the square root of that to get my answer. Typically you have two answers, but when we're talking about real world situations, we're not going to have two answers. So first, I'm going to divide by 3. I have 112. I can divide that by 2. Actually, I divide by 8 and 14. So now, I'm looking for my pairs. Here's a pair of 2's. Here's a pair of 2's. This 7 has no partner, and this 3 has no partner. So x would be equal to a pair of 2's and a pair of 2's. Both those come out. And what's left inside is the 3 and the 7. So my x value would be equal to 4 square root 21. So if I look at C, because it's a word problem, sometimes people see words and are like, oh, this is math, we're not supposed to be reading. I always draw a picture with word problems, especially in this category. So, oh my goodness. I have a 12-foot long ladder that's leading on the edge of a house. So this would be 12. The base of the ladder is 4 feet from the house. So this would be my house right here. 4 feet from the house. It's saying to the nearest tenth of a foot, how high does it go? So again, here's my right angle. This one's the most important one for C. So x squared plus 4 squared will be equal to 12 squared. This one's a little bit easier because you don't have to do radical format. So I'd take 12 squared minus 4 squared. And then I would take the square root of that, and I would get, oh my goodness, to the nearest tenth of a foot would be 11.3 feet would be equal to x. Next section is our special right triangles. So we have two special right triangles. You will either see the format in when I have 45, that means these two are the same. If your two angles are the same, that means these two lengths are the same. So our ratio for 45, 45, 90 would be this side length, this side are the same. Your hypotenuse will be your side length times square root of 2. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, your ratio values are whatever this side length is right here, across from the 60, so if this is 30, this one has to be 60, across from my 60 will be equal to the side length, my x value of 30, times square root 3. Across from 90, so your hypotenuse is taking 2 times that value. I'm going to do B, as in boy. So in our equations, or in our ratios, this value would be x. This value in a 45-40 is x square root 2. So these two can be set equal to each other because this ratio that we have right here is the same thing that these two have to be equal to each other. So our 6 is equal to x square root 2. So if I'm going to solve for x value, you have to divide by square root 2. But you have to rationalize that. Remember how to rationalize? You don't want a root on the bottom, so you multiply by whatever the root is. So that would be 6 square root 2 over square root 2 times square root 2 would give me the square root of 4, which is equal to 2. So now if I'm looking at this right here, I can look, can I simplify that? Yes, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So this is 3 square root 2 would be my answer for B. Try to do A by yourself. For 30, 60, 90, I would always set up my ratio first. Let's see. I'm going to do C and D. So first looking at C, my ratio for across my 30 is x, that's already labeled. Across my 60 would be that value times the square root of 3. Across from my 90 degrees is equal to that value times 2. So whatever, when you first write up your ratio, then you want to see what is given. So this side length's given. I can set my ratio equal to what's given. Bam. So I'm going to divide by 2 to figure out what x is. So x would be equal to, these two simplify to just be square root 3. So that's my x value. Now to figure out my y value is this ratio right here. So that's taking my x value times square root 3. So again, my x value times square root 3. Now square root 3 times square root 3 is going to be the square root of 9. The square root of 9 is 3. So y is equal to 3 for this one. And I said I was going to do e. So again, first writing up my ratio, across from my 30 would be my x. Across from my 60 is my x square root 3. And across from my 90 is my 2x. You have to know that ratio. So here, these two are equal to each other. So the ratio to what's ever given. So 5 is equal to x square root 3. And if I solve this, I have to divide by square root 3 on both sides. I'm also going to rationalize it. So I will need to multiply by square root 3 over square root 3. So 5 square root 3 over 3, because right here, where did that 3 come from? Square root 3 times square root 3 is square root 9. Square root of 9 is 3. That is equal to my x value, which is equal to my d value in this problem. So I have one value figured out, because this one was my d. Now if I want to figure out f is equal to whatever my x value was times 2. So 5 square root 3 over 3. So f is equal to 10 square root 3 over 3. You should try to do the previous one by yourself. And now my favorite stuff, so katoa. So you just have to remember your so that sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Ka, that means it's your trig function cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. Toa, tangent, opposite over adjacent. So first thing first, when solving these problems, is, I'm going to do A and B, sure, why not? Looking at my angle, if I solve for x first, this is my opposite side, because if I look, it's opposite of it. And then whatever is given to me, right here, is given to me as my adjacent. So then I have to think, is it so, ka, or toa? So this one would be tan of my angle is equal to my ratio O, So I need to get rid of that divide by 10.5. So I have to multiply by 10.5 on each side. And I'm sorry. The big fingers are just not doing it. One thing you want to make sure that when you're using your calculator, you have to make sure that you're in degrees. If you're in radians, then you're not going to get the right answer. But x is equal to 10.87 right here. I also have to figure out what y is. If I look, this one is still my adjacent. This one now is going to be my hypotenuse. So I have to think, ka. So cosine of 46 is equal to my adjacent over my hypotenuse. Now this one's a little bit different, because first I have to multiply by y. So it would be y times cosine of 46 is equal to 10.5. And then you want to get rid of this multiplication right here. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. You're multiplying by this whole thing, so you want to divide by that whole thing. Cosine 46. 10.5 divided by cosine 46 will give you that y is equal to 15.12. Bada boom. Actually, that's the only one I'm going to do. And you should try to do B, C, and D by yourself. Now I have these word problems. Remember, whenever you have a word problem, you should always, always, always draw a picture. You, whoops-a-daisy, sight a rock climber on a cliff at a 32-degree angle of elevation. Now, depending on the angle of elevation and depression, you should always put that angle in that corner. Always, always, always. Your eye level is 6 feet. Ooh, you're a tall person. So this right here is 6 feet above the ground. And you are 1,000 feet from the base. It's asking what's the approximate height of the rock climber who's climbing right here. Here's the whole rock. What's that? So if I'm looking at this, I'm looking for my opposite. I have my adjacent. Toa. So tangent of my angle is equal to my opposite over my adjacent. I want to get rid of this division. I have to multiply by 1,000. Oops, times tan 32. This is sloppy. Sorry. So I would take 1,000 times tan 1,000 times tan 32, and I would get that x is equal to 624.87. And if that was your final answer, you'd be wrong. Because of the fact that it did not, your eye level is right here, you did not take account of for this portion of the cliff. So you have to add 6 to that. So my final answer would be 630.87 feet. I want you to try to do the last one by yourself and then have just the most greatest day ever that you could even try to have.